Purpose. What does it mean to you? Drive, ambition, vision, having a dream. These are all different ways that people kind of define purpose. Purpose and vision, they're just another vehicle for measuring progress, and progress equals happiness. If you go through a week or even just a day without progress, you will see a decline in your happiness. So my question to you is, have you defined what your purpose is? I am an Air Force veteran, 21 years. I worked trauma room in Afghanistan for 3 tours, and it was quite intense. I then realized that, I wanted to move a different direction. I wanted to see some of these patients I worked on, some of these bilateral, triple amputee guys, young kids. I wanted to help them out. I wanted to see them past the bedside and see how the story ends up and be part of it. I wanted to see what I could do to improve their lives. Seeing that I have a background in the medical, and then I decided to go to school at USC and get a concentration in military social work and counseling for combat veterans. What I learned was eye-opening, but I feel comfortable with it having lived it as well. One of my goals, though, is to maybe show each person that I see whatever they need. Maybe, show them around the hospital. If they're trying to get some therapy, show them where to go and what lies ahead. Kind of some recon for some of these guys. And maybe, maybe they need some help in their personal life. Maybe they need to help finding a new girlfriend or spouse. It'd be like Hitch, hook them up. In general, kind of show them, give them some perspective on what their life is. And I think that's what we're all after, is some perspective and seeing what's out there. I talked to one of my colleagues, his name's Brett, and he's a social worker as well. He's a former Marine. Spent 4 years as a Marine, and he found his purpose as well. And that's one thing that I kind of wanted to aim towards when I was interviewing and talking to him, having a discussion about purpose, because it seemed like he found his as well. He was fighting and being violent, and he thought that was what defined him, was being a violent person. Maybe he said, I was a Marine, so I must have to do stuff that has to do with fighting. And I find it interesting that he found his way to social work, where there's no fighting at all. And that's one thing that we'll talk about, and hopefully we'll touch on with him. You went from being a Marine, and then what were some of your other jobs that you did?
Well, the first job was a busser. It was just because a friend of mine worked at a restaurant and said, "Hey, why don't you come and work here with me?" And I said, "All right, good to go." So I went and started there. But one of the things, I always viewed myself as a fighter, so I've gotten a lot of fights when I was in high school, and it was always looking at street fights and
And this was before or after the Marines?
before the Marines.
Okay, so
Even before the Marines, I fought a lot. And when I got in the Marines, it was fighting for a purpose. Right? Now I'm going into combat. Now I'm training, whatever it may be. But I get to fight. So it's fighter. And I actually applied and started to go through the law enforcement avenue and stuff. But somebody had offered a job as a bouncer, and I said, "Hey, I'll do that for now too. A little extra cash, this would be nice." But what I thought was, it was just a skill that I had. I was just I could fight, so I'll do things that involve fighting, But more so often, I found that I like to protect people. So even when I was at a high school fighting, a lot of times it was I wanted to protect somebody, my brother, or I wanted to protect a football player, a friend of mine, somebody. It was a defense thing. Somebody attacked me, it was like, okay, we'll fight. But you attack somebody who I care about, we're fighting 10 times harder. I'm bringing everything at you. And then when I felt like people were victimized, like I wanted to fight more.
So there's more reason behind it.
Yeah, but a lot of that reason wasn't realized until I'd been doing it for a while. That the kinds of fights that I found myself in more often, were to try to defend somebody.
Well, then what led you to doing social work, which is such a huge contrast from bouncing, fighting, and just fighting for whatever.
Well, so what's interesting is that I struggled to readjust, and I actually didn't feel like I struggled to readjust, as probably most veterans do. I don't think that I was having any hard time. I was going to school, I was working a few jobs, I was married, I had kids, everything was great. I didn't think that I was having any kind of a hard time until my marriage started to go down the tank too. So I came into counseling to get couples counseling. I was going to try to save our marriage, try to fix things, but then it kind of fell through. Wife didn't really want to do couples counseling. She thought it was over. She said that, hey, I have PTSD. You're unstable. This isn't going to work out. I don't even want to try. Right? It was like, and that was a pretty big blow to think. Well, you're not even going to try on the marriage, right? And so I thought everything was going well until this moment. And having been a counselor now, that's one of the big things that I see. People are going fine until life kicks them in the nuts. You get a divorce, or you lose a job, or you get into legal problems, and then you end up in a counseling office.
So they're not dealing with the stress well.
Yeah, but they think they are.
They think they are. Why?
That's the big thing. Is you think you're doing great. And a lot of it makes all sense. Like how you interact with people makes sense, right? And I say this a lot. Like I used to get in a lot of fights until I stopped looking for fights, right? It was like that guy looked at me funny. That guy wants to hurt me. I'm gonna go kick his ass.
Okay.
That guy said something to this guy. I'm gonna go kick his ass because he's starting to fight, right? And then when you stop looking to find these people that are trying to start fights or trying to start hurt people, you start to see that they're not really,
And did that show you more about what you wanted to do?
Well, that part was just more along the lines of looking for things and finding full self-fulfilling prophecy.
Filling that space, so to speak.
And with a lot of veterans too, they don't realize that they're causing a lot of problems for themselves. Right? They don't know that the ways that they talk to people offend somebody or is assaultive, or that somebody else is talking to them in a way that they understand and is not trying to offend them, but they're just talking. It's the way that they talk. Somebody had mentioned to me, hey, have you ever thought about, being a counselor? And, I had military background, and I had the degree that I was working towards in that, and I never really thought about counseling. Like psychology is interesting. Like I love research. I love neurobiology. Like that's what I thought I was in psychology for. Was because this brain stuff is interesting, right? And I like to know how people interact. But when that was mentioned to me, like, hey, have you ever thought about being a therapist? And I said, no, not really, but maybe. I could kind of see that. And then I started to go down that road a little bit more, open up that avenue, and the master's program for social work came up, and it was like, yeah, I think I'll try that. Going down that road, and then internships opened up, and I started to do social work. I started to actually be in the field and seeing it, and that's what really changed me.
So, as a combat veteran who spent a lot of his career and knowing kind of the culture that is involved in the military, how the culture itself changes the person. I think that is very important to know, not just for me as a therapist, which is really important, what I want to cover in these videos as well, but also as a society. I think a lot of us in society, or a lot of the people around military veterans, feel as though they're walking on eggshells, that they're not sure what to say, or what's the right thing to say, or do they want to talk about it, or do they not want to talk about it. And I feel like the more transparency that I can bring to society, that we can really show how we can help military veterans and not feel weird about it, not feel like it's a taboo subject, and for that matter, create an environment to where military veterans can thrive if you understand more about what they're going through and what they've been through and what they need, then the conversation isn't so weird. I'll ask my veteran, I'll say, what are you doing right now that makes you feel happy? Well, what do you mean? Well, what are you doing that makes you feel like you're giving back, that you're excited about when you wake up? Is there any times that you have felt excited to wake up? No. In fact, I really can't. Well, when was the last time that you felt excited? When I was in the military. So, did you have hobbies back then? Well, they would say, yeah, I used to play sports. Are you playing those sports now? No. For some reason, military veterans are leaving their purpose, their identity, their hobbies, whatever would get them up in the morning, behind. They're leaving it back with the military. So, which is ironic, because the very problems that they are showing is the very things that help them survive out in Iraq or Afghanistan or something. They don't like people standing behind them. They don't, they get startled from loud noises or bangs. They are checking out the room, want to make sure they can see the door. Of course, like I said, don't like walking through crowds. That really causes them a problem as well. So that isn't normal in society right now. That isn't normal at all. But if we were to take a civilian who hadn't been exposed to those things and put them into Afghanistan without having those of looking over your shoulder or walking through a crowd, they would be the unsafe ones. They would be the weird ones. They would be the outliers. So it isn't that your military veteran is doing something wrong or weird. He's just doing it in the wrong place because he's left his identity there.
So they interact with this world in a way that makes sense to them, right? But it makes sense in a military culture. You know, a big thing we talk about is the knife hand, right? You know, which apparently they don't do anymore in the military, right? But it's directive. You know, it's, hey, you go do that. You know, but you do that in the civilian world, it's like, whoa, man, chill out. You know, stop talking to me like that. Why are you raising your voice? Why is that tone deep? And it's purposeful. I want you to do that now. You know, and it's very purposeful.
It's intense.
But that's the military culture, and it's accepted. That's the way that we, get things done. You know, I want you to jump. I want you to jump right now. I don't care. You don't ask questions. You do it.
What I'm finding is that if this space that is left by a military veteran where they fall off this purpose cliff, this space creates a vacuum that pulls in any kind of bad thing it can if the veteran doesn't fill it themselves with something healthy. It will fill it with addiction and with all the PTSD-like symptoms that you hear about. So as a therapist, you want to explain this to them, that if you don't fill your life with stuff, good stuff, hopefully, that life will fill it for you and fill it with a lot of unfavorable things, to include any types of addiction, whether it be sexual, drugs, alcohol, and also the other emotional problems of being angry. So I find that if we can find the purpose, that the symptoms will be mitigated, that it'll be brought down to where maybe it's still there, but it's bearable and it's treatable. And I'm finding that is the biggest help for the people I work with, for my colleagues, for my military brothers and sisters. So to back this up, you have to think about several things. If you were to retire before the age of 50, your mortality rate has increased over 60%. If you were to retire before the age of 60, your mortality rate is around 20% increased. Not as bad, but still significant. I don't even need to give you the statistics on if you were married to a spouse for a long period of time and one of the spouses passes away. Typically 2 or 3 years before the other spouse will go as well, and it won't be from a broken heart, although some do. It'll be from a car accident or a heart attack or cancer, but it's typically right after that because their purpose could be their spouse. If they have nothing left to live for, people in general don't do well. And the point I'm trying to bring here is that military people have a steeper cliff than most because they come from a very directive, a very purposeful lifestyle that they grow up in, that there are lots of changes and life changes are happening, not to mention that they start when they're 18, so a lot of growing is happening. And then they get put into the civilian world where it changes, where they don't even know where to go. What do I do? And they feel lost. So what I'm finding is that I need to start over sometimes with my veterans. That we need to start with even the most simple hobby, or maybe even just finding a dog to take out. A new purpose. A new way of showing progress. Having a vision or purpose is just another vehicle for measuring progress, and I believe progress is something that is the key to happiness. If you're not seeing any progress in your life, you're eventually going to be unhappy.
Well, you know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
And purpose is in Maslow's hierarchy. So above, food, shelter, security. So a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm looking at where they're standing already in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, if they're homeless, then we've got to fix that first, and then build on that. And so I generally try to get to a sense of purpose because that'll shape a lot of things. That'll shape where they're going, their goals, their drive and motivation is especially a big one. When we talk about counseling services and people that aren't engaged or invested.
Mm-hmm.
If it's yours, you're invested. So they come across and they figure out where they want to go and where they want to be. And generally they don't have like this psychological perspective of where I want to stand mentally. It's tangible things of the job and the house and wife and kids, so whatever that may be. But mostly it's purpose, because a lot of guys will have the job, the wife, the house, and still seem lost.
And what I'm finding is that a lot of them are choosing a job, but it's just to pay the bills. They're not, the military really sets up someone from falling off a purpose cliff because they come from a place where they have leaders who know exactly what's going on with them, how they feel about things and their goals, to managers who could care less and just throw a book and say, learn this. They go from a place of, knowing what, who they're working with. In the military, you have brothers and sisters that you're willing to lay your life down on for. And then you go to a workplace where you have coworkers who may not even show up the next day because they're sick or choosing another job. And then, having a purpose and raising your hand and knowing deep down in your soul why you're doing something to, let's just go make some money. And I think this all really clicked in when I heard you speak once, and I raised my hand in the audience. Do you remember that? And I said, what is the number one blurb that you hear from people with PTSD? And your background is so much as PTSD, and I believe the talk was on that. And you said,
what am I doing? What am I doing with my life?
And I wish I could go back.
Yeah, I wish I could go back.
And as a medical person, that's not a symptom. it's not something that we can measure. That's the loss of identity. They keep on talking about how it used to be in the military instead of what they're giving society now. It's almost like it's standing in the way, like a wall.
Yeah. And a lot of the best successes that I've seen have been people who have, gone to school and gotten a degree in something that they enjoy doing, or switched out of the career field that they're in to another field, or just volunteered in an avenue or an area which provides them a sense of purpose. So for me, I coach. I've coached for years on all kinds of different sports. Some sports that I don't even really know that much about, but I have time to volunteer, and I find volunteering is very important and fulfilling to me. But more importantly, I love to see kids grow. I like to see character grow within a kid, and adults as well. I mean, I've coached, at adult levels. I counsel, and those aspects I deal with a lot more adults. But really, what I come to the conclusion is I like to see people grow towards their goals. To become the grown man that they want to be, or to become the father that they want to be. Whatever aspect of their life it is, I want them to achieve those goals and really flourish, and that's like become my purpose.
So what I mean by problems is that symptoms seem to develop when they haven't filled this space. They haven't filled this void in their life, and that's when the addictions and all the PTSD-like symptoms, like hypervigilance and looking over your shoulder, not wanting to be in crowds, looking at the door, those kind of things tend to happen, and I notice they go away when they're doing their job, or they're finding a purpose, or there's some sort of drive.
Well, I think drive and motivation is a very important aspect of everybody's life, but more importantly for veterans, one of the things I talk about is levels of extremes. And a veteran population generally has been dealing with a higher level of extreme. If I fail at my job, somebody's going to die. If I don't catch that, blurb over the microphones in my Intel office, then somebody might die. If I, don't tighten that bolt down tight enough, somebody might die. If I'm not covering that guy's back, or providing overwatch, or getting the supplies, the ammunition, the food out to the room, somebody might die. And that level of an extreme isn't it's not common in the civilian world. And so when somebody comes from protecting somebody's life who they may not even know, in order to do a mission that they may not even know about, to go into a place where the mission is to file papers, or for a boss that you really don't like, for a bunch of people you don't even know, for a company that you could care less about, there's the purpose is diminished.
It's exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm not saying that we can't go back to trauma, but I would like to go back to trauma in a place where they are strong enough. So what do you think about the paradox? I wish I could go back, but this trauma and the time that I was there is so horrific.
Well, I think the wanting to go back thing is pretty common, because we all want to go back to a time that defines us better, that we enjoyed life more. I want to go back to when I was 10 years old playing baseball. I want to go back to when I just graduated high school, or I was fresh in college. We want to go back to times that provide usually happiness.
Exactly. I think the one word that really struck me right there was that defines us.
Yeah.
So the problem is that they don't go into a civilian function that defines them.
Yeah.
It's almost like it would be dishonorable to their past to do something better, to shine. And what I'm finding is that when they do, the symptoms are mitigated and reduced. And that's the challenge. I think that's even more the challenge than finding and fighting through the trauma.
Well, one of the significant things about trauma is the meaning. Trauma reestablishes a person's meaning. I'm a bad person. I did this and now I'm a bad person. Or I didn't do this and now I'm a bad person.
And I'm not diminishing the people who actually had some legitimate trauma.
Well, no, what I was
and-
meaning was trauma supports that theory. Is that the meaning has been reshaped because of trauma.
Okay,
The purpose of your life can be reshaped.
that's true.
Now you're trying to survive. You're no longer driving to achieve or to enjoy or live. You're just trying to get by without being attacked or assaulted, or your family being attacked or assaulted. You know? So your purpose changes from a living standpoint to a not dying standpoint. You know? And that a lot of that comes from the trauma and the shaping of the trauma. And the meaning comes with how you define yourself. I think the best support for that is to find some people who have found purpose in their life and how all of the symptoms kind of diminish. You know, the anxiety of having to speak in front of people is pretty heavy, but then when you're speaking on a topic that you're comfortable with, that you enjoy, that you love, and you want to share with people, that anxiety is diminished, or at least you're more courageous in dealing with it.
Well, not just that, you feel that burning of excitement when that same burning can be felt as anxiety. And it's just how we perceive it. There needs to be more of an emphasis placed on identity, purpose, and direction in their new civilian roles. And that we're missing the emphasis, although we all would probably agree with it, we're missing the emphasis that needs to be placed on it. So it's very important that the veteran is able to see the progress. So I can improve different aspects of my life, but since they're so spread out in different aspects, I don't see the progress, and thus I become less happy and more depressed than I actually may have been. So the question here is, which is first, the depression or the lack of purpose, the chicken or the egg? Now it's true, I think both could be the right answer. So the one thing that we need to work on with our veterans is finding what is your new purpose. And what I'm finding is that the military veterans are somehow leaning on their history so much that they can't move forward in life. Their past is so honorable and so structured and so purposeful that everything else seems plain. I remember saying to myself, I feel like I was eating food with like the best hot sauce and the best seasonings and barbecue sauce or whatever, and I come back to America and I'm just like eating white rice every day. It's just like bleh. So there's this feeling of emptiness, like you're walking around like an empty shell because of that intense emotion that you had over there. And it's not like you could talk to someone that was next to you because they're going through the same thing. So you can't see how bad it is because everybody's dealing with the same stuff until you come back. And there's nothing really to worry about. People are worried about stupid things, and that's what the veteran's thinking. That everything is just dumb and plain and not worth it. So we really need to go the extra mile, more than anybody else, because as a civilian world, we're in competition for the life that they had before. We almost got to build this new life up around them to being as exciting and as purposeful as it once was. And to each person, it's going to be different. And that's the challenge.